Hello again and welcome back to the workshop. Here we have a Philips N2407. You might have watched some of my other videos in the past and you've seen the Philips N2407. This actually isn't the same machine, this is a different one. The one you've seen before is very much in working condition and still here. Used to belong to my late friend River, and that is still going. Recently repaired by my friend George. It had to have some further work done to it, but that's going nicely. This one, however, arrived yesterday. I bought it from eBay. I think it cost me about £11. Of course there's postage on top of that, which I think was about £6 or £7, so not too bad. Wasn't very expensive, and I think the main reason being, of course, it was sold as in non-working order, which it very much was. It all looks quite clean and tidy now. There are a few bits of damage here and there, and there's a missing panel here on the right hand side, but yes, it certainly wasn't in working order. It's taken a bit of getting going, but I could see that it basically wanted to work. Electronically it was all sound, it was all there. Someone's clearly been in there before me and has replaced some components, I think. So I think it has in the past been looked after and has been repaired by someone who knew what they were doing. Of course, the main thing to do as soon as I opened it up is the belts had gone. The belts in Philips equipment go to goo, and I had to take out the old belts, clean it all up and fit new belts, or replacement belts. I've got a great big pile of belts over there, and I usually manage to find what I'm looking for in that. And the fast forward rewind belt, which is a very small belt, has about the diameter of a 10p piece. That is actually an O-ring, much cheaper to fit those than trying to find belts on eBay that will fit. Anyway, fitted the belts and the cassette deck splattered straight into life. The speed was a little bit out, I've had to adjust the speed, but it just worked. It didn't even need much cleaning up, to be honest. The head was very dirty and I've cleaned the head up. At first I didn't think it was actually going to work because nothing lit up. All of the bulbs are blown. I'll turn this light off and you'll be able to see I've fitted a replacement bulb in the VU meters. All of these bulbs had blown. As you can see, they're all working now as they should. I happen to have these bulbs in stock. These are 12 volt bulbs, and I've actually fitted some screw-in type ones. I've not screwed them in place because they're just push fit, but they actually fit the holders perfectly, which is very convenient really, because the bulbs they used were quite unique really. A lot of things back then, when Philips made things, were very much unique to them, which is a little bit inconvenient now, 40, 50 years on down the line. But usually something can be done and something can be found that will work in the same way. The other thing is the mains cable was quite deadly on this. It had been spliced in with this lead over here. This is a kettle lead, and it had been spliced in with some insulation tape and a chock block, which was roughly holding the wires in place, but the wires had been stripped back so much that the live and the neutral wire were almost touching. As for the earth wire in the kettle lead over there, it had just been cut, and was just there but not actually attached to anything. So I think at some point this had shared the same power cable with another piece of hi-fi equipment. Heaven knows what it was, but I think that was the reason for cutting the lead about. I've seen that done before, and it's not always particularly safe, because sometimes it's done by people who, well, don't know very much about electrical safety. But anyway, the original power cable was there and was included with this. There was no plug attached, and I've actually reused the cable, cleaned it up, it came up very nicely. So it actually does have its original power cable there. And I've just reconnected it inside. The normal thing with Philips equipment is the mains power switch had failed. Here is the original mains power switch. I literally just cut it out. It's done the usual. It doesn't, well, sometimes it does, but it sticks and it doesn't hold very well. And there's actually residue of glue on this, like it's been apart in the past and someone's tried to repair it, but it doesn't work. When I powered it up, I had to actually wedge a piece of cardboard in the in the slot there to keep it on. But I was lucky I did have a spare switch, so I've just fitted that in place. So new switch, new bulbs, clean the heads, new belts. Unfortunately, the head in here is extremely well worn. It is worn out. It's got a massive great big groove going through it. This has seen quite a bit of use in the past, but then again so has my other one, and the head was worn out in that. I don't think I've got a replacement head at the moment that will go in here. It needs to be within tolerance with the bias, and I've got a friend of mine who's possibly going to help me find a head. I've got a box full of heads over there, but I need to find one that's got the right bias before I start swapping heads over. So at the moment I've left the original one in there. It is a bit worn out. It sounds more worn out on the right hand channel for some reason. I think it's worn slightly unevenly. I've lined it up as best as I can, but yeah, definitely needs a new head. But for test purposes I can hear it is actually coming through quite equally through both channels. The amplifier is lovely. I'm very lucky with that, and I think at some point someone has actually replaced some transistors in this, because I could see some newer looking solder, shall we say, inside this. So someone's done something to this in the past, and thankfully the amplifier is working nicely. I think this has been in storage for some time. I think the rough history of it is this belonged to a gentleman who passed away, and this has been in a lock-up or a shed or garage for some time, and it picked up quite a bit of dirt. All of these slider controls are a bit of a dust and dirt trap, and there was all sorts of muck inside these sliders, and I've cleaned that all out. And when I took the back off, a shower of grit and dirt and debris came showering out of it. A lot of muck in there. So I think it's been in storage for quite some time and unused, as a lot of these things are very often. Anyway, cleaned it all out. I actually get an old paintbrush, here it is, and just give everything a dust over inside. And I've got a finer brush, which is actually a makeup brush, and I use that to clean in between anything that's a bit more delicate, where you don't want to apply too much pressure. So I've done that, cleaned it all out, and I've used the Servosol to clean the control sliders on the inside. They were a bit scratchy, especially for the record section, so I've lubricated that with the switch cleaner, and all of the sliders work nicely now, nice and smooth, and there is no crackle whatsoever, which is good. These don't usually suffer with it too much anyway. My other one's okay. The good thing is the actual internal part of the sliders is underneath these plates here, so dust, it's quite difficult for dust to get inside those sliders, which is brilliant. That is actually a very good design. Here you've got your microphone sockets. This has got dynamic noise reduction, which was very much Philips' own design, their own system, and some might say this is actually better than Dolby noise reduction, and I must say I have to agree with them. It takes away the hiss on the tape, but doesn't take away too much treble and doesn't increase the bass. Sometimes with Dolby noise reduction, that is the problem. So that works very well. You've also got, you haven't got automatic stop on this, because this actually shares the same mechanism as the Philips N2407 and other machines that came before this. This was the successor, if you like, to the Philips N2400. It's another amplified stereo cassette deck, and this replaced it, and of course you had the extra functions of the dynamic noise limiter, and of course the capability for normal and special tapes. Special tapes being chrome at the time. Metal tapes hadn't quite been invented by the time this machine was made, but you had normal ferric oxide tapes, in the case of this one super ferric, ferrochrome and chrome tapes. So for ferrochrome and chrome tapes you would have the knockout in the tape, and that will then, as you can see there, change the setting automatically. There is a lug inside the cassette deck there, and when you have a chrome tape, I don't think I've got any chrome tapes in here at the moment, but when you have a chrome tape they have a knockout in the base of the cassette there, and that tab inside here detects whether it's got one of those or not. In the case of this one it hasn't, because it is a standard tape, and it just selects the normal setting. As I say, you haven't got fully automatic stop on here, but when the tape does come to an end, this lamp here flashes, and there is a cutout inside here which is done magnetically, that actually stops the motor. So the motor stops, but it doesn't actually raise any of the buttons, it doesn't disengage the mechanism at all, it simply cuts the motor out, and then this lamp here flashes. I might be able to demonstrate that when I do a demonstration after this video. So that's how that works, and that still works on here, and that is very rare. They very often don't work anymore. There is as I say, a magnetic pickup inside here which detects when the tape has come to the end, and very often they just fail and they stop working, and the motor will just carry on merrily away but nothing happens. But this one does work, which is brilliant. So yes, you do have some extra functions here. VU meters work during playback and record. On the N2400 they only worked during recording. You've got a counter mechanism here. The N2400 had that as well, and you've got this nice silver finished, brushed silver finish plate here with the N2407 rather logo on there. Made in Austria, so as everything was back then. Come the 80s, things were being made elsewhere, and some might say the quality went downhill, but this was made in Philips's heyday and is very well built. Capability on the back for record player, tape deck, and you can even plug this into an external amp should you wish to. even though you have got the built-in amp here. So that's your connections on the back, and speaker connection is done via 2-pin DIN, and I've got a speaker up there and a speaker over there today plugged into the back of it. So there we go, that's about all there is to it. As I say, we are missing a panel on the side, one of the trims. This one is in good condition actually and cleaned up nicely. I've messaged the seller. If he comes across the other one, he may be able to send it to me in the post. But of course this thing's been in storage for years, it's probably been moved about a bit, and who knows, it could be lost. But it's not the end of the world. It wouldn't be too hard for me to actually make a proper wooden side panel for this, and do the same to the other side as well, so it matches. And that may be the route I go down, possibly at some point. The panels that come on this are just plastic, wood effect. If I can find some wood somewhere and stain it to a suitable colour, and possibly even varnish it, I could probably imitate that quite nicely with real wood. Anyway, I've gone on for far too long, and in the next video I will probably demonstrate this working, but please bear in mind at the moment it's still sort of running in. It's got new belts in it. I think possibly even the motor might be on its last legs. It does have a slight tendency to waver a bit between speeds. It's a common thing that goes on a high mileage deck, and I've actually got a few motors up there lined up that I could use instead should I need to. But hopefully it may even run in a bit better, and I'm hoping at some point I'll be able to find a new head. But in the meantime it works roughly as it should do, and it's certainly looking and sounding a lot better than it was when it arrived yesterday. But it's been good fun, and I've had plenty of spare time on my hands recently with the coronavirus lockdown. However, I am returning to work tomorrow, so time for doing this sort of thing will won't probably be there so much. It'll be more of a weekend thing, so videos will probably slow down in the next few days or so. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll join us in the next video where I'll give this a little blast. Bye for now.